Hello, I'm Adi and today I will be your teacher. In this lesson we are looking at what chord progressions are and how we can make them using the chords we already know. But before we get started on that, let's have a quick recap on what we did last lesson. Using a C major scale, we were able to construct triads using the root note plus the third and fifth notes above it. Take the note C, the first note in the scale, and in this case the root note. To find the third, I simply looked at what would be the third note above the C. 1, 2, 3. Here it is, the E. And then I did the same for the fifth note above C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is a G. When all three of these notes are played simultaneously, we can hear a C major triad. When this is done from each degree of the scale, meaning that each note in the scale becomes the root note, and the third and the fifth is added to make a triad, a family of chords is created. We've just done the C major off the C. Let's take D as our root note. D, 2, 3, that's an F, 4, 5, that's an A. We play all those together, we get a D minor chord. We can take E as our root note. E, 2, 3, 4, 5, E, G and B, which gives us an E minor chord. Let's take F, 2, 3, 4, 5, F, A, C. That gives us an F major chord. And we'll go back down here for G. G, 2, 3, 4, 5, G, B and D. That gives us a G major chord. A, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, C, E, an A minor chord, and then B, 2, 3, 4, 5, a B diminished chord. There are 7 notes in total, therefore 7 chords, each labelled with a Roman numeral to denote where it sits in the scale. There are 3 major chords, which are the happy ones, C, F and G. We have 3 minor chords, the sad ones, D minor, E minor and A minor, and then 1 diminished chord which sounds kind of spooky. That's our B diminished. So now we know how to make a chord, we can start putting them together to make songs. Remember earlier I spoke about how each chord is allocated a Roman numeral? Well, that's how chords are named in a chord progression. A simple blues progression, for example, could be written as a 1, 4, 5, meaning that we play the first chord, the C, the fourth chord, the F, and the fifth chord, the G. We put these together, we get quite a bluesy chord progression. In jazz, a common progression might be a 2, a 5 and a 1. That'd be a D minor, a G, and then back to 1, the tonic chord. So we can have let's have a look at the 1, 5, 6, 4 chord progression, which is predominantly used in pop music. The 1, 5, 6, 4 progression, also known as the 4 chord progression, uses the first, fifth, sixth and fourth chords of a musical scale in that order. So in the key of C major, this progression would be C, G, A minor and F. Just to quickly recap those, we have a C chord, C, E and G, the 1, 3 and the 5. We have the G chord, G, B, D. The A minor chord, A, C and E. and the F major chord. F, A and C. Now we're going to put them all together, a bit like this. Okay, how do we do that? So, for this chord progression, we'll keep C in root position. C. Looking at the notes in G, B and D, we can see that we have G in common with C major. So a sensible thing to do will be to leave it where it is. This G can stay here. That leaves B and D, which are only one step away from the remaining notes in C, the C and the E. So we can simply move these notes one key lower to create a first inversion of G, like this. Here's our C chord. G is going to stay where it is. I'm going to move my C down to B and my E down to D. There we have a G major chord, a first inversion, because we've moved G from here and placed it up here. Okay, the next change. There are no notes in common between G, B and D, and A minor, A, C and E, but they are all very close. In fact, to get from A minor to G, we can just make each note one key higher. So from G here, we need A, C and E. So we can move the G up to A, we can move the B back to C, and the D back to E where we started. There we have an A minor in the first inversion. Now, from A minor, A, C and E to F major, F, A and C, we can see that we have two notes in common, the C and the A. So all we need to do to get from an A minor to an F is raise the E to an F, in this case. An A minor chord, and now we have our F. Because the order of the notes in F is now C, F, A, this is called a second inversion. We've taken the F from here and moved it to here to make a first inversion, and then we've taken the A from this position and moved it up to here. So we flipped that chord around twice. This is a second inversion. And there we have it. The same four chords as before, but without having to move more than one key lower or higher. C to G to A minor to F. To make this more challenging, you can add in the root notes of each chord using your left hand, like this. C, G, A and F. When we put that together, and you can just loop that round and round as long as you like. Practice this until you can play it with ease. To test your knowledge of this lesson, complete worksheet 6 in the booklet which accompanies this lesson. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for choosing secondary dominant, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.